Please let us also call to mind the abuelas and abuelos, all the ancestors, yours and mine, on whose mighty shoulders we stand, this Mother Earth. Sin ellos, no somos nada. Without them, we cannot be. This evening's Dharma talk is entitled, How Will You Plant Your Life? What could it mean? The Dharma is vast and subtle. Does everyone know what Dharma is? I know there's a lot of practitioners in the room. Does anybody know what it is? Anyone want to share their thought? What could Dharma be? Anyone? I'm on the hot seat, you're not. You can take a chance. What is Dharma?
Law.
The law?
Love. Being.
That's good. Any other thoughts? Yeah?
The way things are.
Yeah, Natalie, exactly. So wonderful. Of course, commonly we think of Dharma, or classically we think of Dharma as the Buddhist teaching. And that's plenty wonderful. But maybe it's helpful to see if we can see it even more simply than that. Your own simple awareness. Apropos of your comment, Natalie, I was just the other day heard Natalie speak at a very wonderful talk that she gave at this year's literary festival, where she referred to the Dharma just as she said now, the truth of things just as they are. My ears pricked up at that. So simple and direct and ordinary. She spoke of a beautiful French woman who wrote about her ordinary life for years and years, and some years back won the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature. I don't remember her name. Sanai?
Annie Ernaux.
Annie Ernaux, yeah. And what I took away from that, because I imagined that the people that came to her talk really were wondering, how can I be a good writer? How do I do this? And I think she probably gave that example to really illustrate what it means just to be ordinary. Maybe there's something wise and powerful in it for us to consider. So it's been almost, about 7 years now or so, I lose track, maybe 8, Roshi could tell me, that Roshi asked me to be on the faculty of what was then called Ancient Lands, today's Planting Life. I can still recall we were up at the refuge, and we had gone on a long hike, as we customarily do with Roshi. And upon our return from the hike, she said, I have this idea. I think I'd like you to do a program where you talk about your ancestors. You have such a rich knowledge of your culture, she said. I'd been plying her with grandmother's dichos and never seemed to lose the opportunity to talk about my culture, the architecture, the history, the lore of the people around the villages on the high road on the way to the refuge. Mi tierra, as we say in Spanish, the very heart of where I come from, literally my dirt. I love that about Spanish. It's so poetic and direct. Mi tierra, right? That's when you're from someplace, we say the dirt, where the dirt I'm from. It'll be great, Roshi said. Okay, but I had doubts. I said yes, but inside I was doubting. What on earth could my cultural lens and lineage have to do with Dharma in a Zen center? But Roshi said it'll be all right. Don't worry. I began to live into this question, more scared than sure, as I've mentioned. I needed to understand it for myself. Even now, even right now, I wonder, what could this truly mean? Over the many years, we have visited the sacred lands and sites of the Tewa and Hispanic peoples just north of us. From Sankawi to the Tewa lands of Santa Clara, the old churches and chapels, the acequias on the high road. We have planted many beautiful gardens in this valley, traveling in pilgrimage, the guests of various generous communities, each year mending the earth, ceremonially planting and watering seeds. Tewa blue corn, bolita beans, squash, heirloom chili from Chimayo. Grinding the corn on my great-grandmother's metate, dancing, eating, and reveling. And still, I have found myself doubting, asking, what is the meaning of all this? What could I possibly offer? Maybe I'll run out of dichos, I think. What can I bring? Like a strange kind of koan, the question pokes and prods at me. What could it mean to plant life? I show up. Doubts and all, I show up. Does everyone know what a koan is? Any ideas of what a koan is?
What is?
Koan. What is a koan?
Oh,
I'll tell. Go ahead.
story?
Yeah, it's a kind of Zen riddle, a nonsensical riddle that helps us perhaps to go beyond regular thinking, to demonstrate perhaps the inadequacy of logical reasoning, to provoke enlightenment. Okay, another path towards understanding. So I have read there are even as many as 1,700 koans. I think 100 or so in the Blue Cliff record. I will talk a little bit more about koans down the road later. But in any event, maybe it's also helpful to consider that there are countless riddles, so many curious questions en este camino, this road we're on. Really, as Roshi Joan likes to say, consider, why am I really here? Why am I here? For some 30 years or so, I have pondered this question more intently, following this path and that, sitting, not sitting, stopping and starting. Pick a path, any path. If that path, pick it as often as you like, take that path as often as you like. If that path has a heart, then it's a good path. If it has no heart, then maybe it's not a good path. So says Don Ruiz of the Four Agreements. Does your path have a heart? Does your path have a heart? Many years ago now, with some Christmas money I had received, I determined to deepen my Zen practice by purchasing my very own zafu and zabuton. You know, the cushions we use here in the Zendo. And so my search took me to this very wonderful store. You might know about it. It's called Sachi Organics. It's a locally owned Japanese family who makes these beautiful cushions. And so I went there with my Christmas money, kind of funny, in hand to purchase these cushions for my meditation practice. And there at the counter, as I was making my way to leave, I encountered this lovely young woman by the name of Ayumi. And Ayumi says to me, "Are you a meditator?" I say, "Yes." And she says, "What what kind of practice do you have?" And I say, "I'm a Zen practitioner." "Ah, very interesting." She goes, "I study tea." Tea, I say, "Yes." The Japanese tea ceremony. "Did you know," she says, "there is an organization right here in Santa Fe, it's called Chado, devoted to the study of tea. You might want to check it out. I think you would like it." My ears pricked up again. That was a Saturday. By Tuesday, I was in my very first tea lesson. I show up, right? I show up. I don't know what I'm going to do there, but I show up. I can still recall that first beautiful lesson. I walked into this very organized, beautiful tea space with every manner of tea accoutrement. And there in the corner was a beautiful tokonoma, kind of altar space in the tea room. Just let yourself relax. Take in the sights, the sounds, and the smells of the tea room, the teacher instructs. I bow before the tokonoma. There, hanging in it, was a beautiful calligraphic scroll. I could not read it, and I asked, "What does it say?" The teacher replied, "When the mind is still, the tea is fragrant. When the mind is still, the tea is fragrant." My whole body sensed a kind of softening. Seemed right, seemed nice. Tea and still mind. But what could it mean? Another kind of funny koan. You may know that tea and Zen are considered to be of one taste, so it's not uncommon to have these kind of, sayings hanging in the tea room as a way to incite deeper awareness and reflection. Years later, I devoted myself quite seriously to the practice every Tuesday, right after work. Straight from work, I went to my tea lesson. And even after a long, tiring day at my corporate job, I came to the lesson that day. I sat seiza, which you might know is a kind of kneeling position, and I sat before the kama and the tea bowl. I filled the bowl with the requisite amount of powdered matcha, this beautiful bright green tea. I'm so tired from the day's work, but somehow I managed to allow my arm to be an extension of the ladle as I had been taught. My hand is the cup. I plunge it into the boiling water. I pull it out. I let it go. I release it. I let it go. And there, wafting up from the bowl, was the fragrance of the tea. I couldn't believe it. I thought, perhaps this is my only true, proper bowl of tea I have ever made. When the mind is still, the tea is fragrant. Just the bowl, just the tea, hot water. I shared my insight with my teacher, a very strict and exacting person. You might know that the study of tea is no simple matter. It's got a lot of incredibly detailed movements. You could spend the whole of your life studying it, and you might not ever exhaust its possibility and its intricacy. So this teacher, wonderful teacher, a woman by the name of Sakina van Briesen, just over the hill there, she was a very strict and good and excellent teacher, and I shared this beautiful insight about the tea wafting up to me. And she then said to me at that moment, because she was forever correcting me, just nitpicking at every movement, she said, "I want you to know something. In here, in these lessons with me, you can do no right. You can do no right. It is my job to guide you in your every move. But I promise you something, that when you go to make a bowl of tea for your guest with your whole heart, you can do no wrong. You can do no wrong." That has stayed with me. It stays with me still. We wonder, do I got it right? Am I sitting right? Am I meditating right? Did I say it right? Did I pick the right person? What's going on? And I just want you to know, really, when you do it with your whole heart, your wholehearted awareness, you can do no wrong. When we still our mind, the heart of things reveals itself. Okay, so back to koans. So you may know that there's one very common beginner koan. It's the one that says, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" Have you heard that one? What is the sound of one hand clapping? Okay, so it's a so-called beginner one. And as I might have mentioned, I've been in Zen circles in practice for about 30 years, give or take. And frankly, I have never officially engaged in the study of koans. We don't particularly do that here either. Though on occasion I have thumbed through the Blue Cliff record, toying with the idea of studying them perhaps more seriously. And many years after the communion with the tea that I just described, again, quite tired, maybe that's a clue, I don't know, but I'm noticing a pattern. Quite tired on my way to bed after a long day of work, I remembered feeling almost giddy at the prospect of laying my head on the pillow. I was so tired. And just then I lay my head down, and there came this phrase, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" So strange, I had not been studying koans. It seemed totally random. I laughed out loud. No sound. No sound. Of course. I literally laughed out loud. A deeply comforting understanding seemed to wash over me. No logic, just the simple fact, the simple truth. One hand cannot make a clapping sound. How has it eluded me all these years? I had been trying too hard. How could it be so simple? No matter though, you know it. Maybe, just maybe, you always did. Still, not quite sure of myself, the very next morning, I immediately called Noah. He's a kind of, I don't know, Zen nerd. He geeks out on these wonderful kinds of things like koans. Some people Google, I call Noah. So knowledgeable and helpful. True story. I called him and I say, "Noah, you can't believe it. I was going to bed. I don't know what the heck happened. I wasn't studying koans. I laid my head down. There came the koan. And I said, no sound. Is that right? You tell me," he says. "I think that's right. Okay, what's the mudra? What's the posture of the hand?" Of course, we were on the phone and I put out my hand. That's it. That's it, he says. "Tell Roshi." So I do. Roshi texts me back. Wonderful. Yay. Green light, green light. I think I got it. It was just like grandmother's teaching about the corn. El maíz es como la mentira, con el tiempo sale. Corn is like a lie. With time, it comes out. The truth is revealed. Grandmother had told me in her beautiful Spanish, "A veces, cuando vas a sembrar una milpa, de repente se te escapa una semilla de maíz y ahí donde no esperabas sale." Sometimes you go to plant a field of corn and a lone kernel gets away from you. And there, where you least expect it, it is sprouting. It is sprouting just when you least expect it. Truth and lies are like this. A seed had been planted. This year, I confess, I had thought to let my field lay fallow, so to speak, and not participate in this year's planting life. I had suffered some significant losses of some friends and have been battling with some challenging disillusionments. So I feared yet again, perhaps I have little or nothing that I could offer. And as I was preparing for this, I was reminded of a journey I took some years ago now. I was endeavoring to study shamanism in the jungles of Guatemala with my teacher, Gigi. And I had gone down very eager to study the way of the Maya and the fire ceremonies there in the jungle. But she always seemed to be having something going on. Her Jeep wasn't working, and now this delay, and now that delay. Don't worry, we'll get there, she says. I have to stop by the mechanic. It'll be all right. And there in the car with us at the time of going to take the car to the mechanic was this guy named Valentin. Ironically and so interestingly enough, he was also a New Mexican, and he knew people I knew in Chimayo. It was just the strangest thing. There we are in Gigi's Jeep, Valentino and me. And as Gigi's messing around with her car, he looks to me, he's kind of quizzical. He says, what are you doing here? I said, well, I want to study the shaman path with Gigi. And he remarked, you come a long way to learn what's in your own backyard, don't you think? He says, everybody comes wanting something. Everyone wants something, but so few think about what will they give. Powerful teaching right there. That was the whole lesson. I didn't have to go light a fire. There in the Jeep, Valentino says, what will you give? Right. And yet again this year, Roshi called upon me to participate, to show up. Okay, I think, maybe I can do that. Powerful things tend to happen when I show up. So I determined to be here. And now I want to tell you about a very intimate journey with my father in our family orchard. I take a glass of water, drink of water here. Not long before I had agreed to be a part of this year's planting life, my father called and asked if I could help him irrigate the orchard, our orchard in Chimayo. I'm really sorry to bother you, my father said, but added quickly how important the water is. When water comes, he said, I have to take it. And then for emphasis, he added, even if I have a doctor's appointment, if the water is offered to me, I take it. I cancel other appointments. My father has a life-threatening health condition, so his words landed with extra gravity. Sure, Dad, I'll be there. No problem. And on the appointed day at about 6 a.m., I arrive at the orchard. Again, not feeling at all well, aching, having not slept well, tossing and turning for a better part of the night. I half-heartedly step out of the car and make my way toward my father to greet him. I'm sure he noticed I was not quite myself, but he made no mention of it. Determined to honor my commitment, I give myself to the task, and we walk slowly, quietly, as we make our way to the head gates just above the orchard. My father was eager to show that I should know how to divert the water from the mother ditch. I won't be here forever, he says. You really need to learn how to do this. My attention and resolve seem to float far above me. Pon atención, he orders. Pay attention. Okay, Dad, I'm listening. We open the compuertas, the floodgates, and release the water. Down through old chili fields, now long gone, now grown over by 4 kinds of apples. Jonathan, stamen, red, and golden delicious. The stamen are my father's favorite. He never fails to let me know how carefully he tends to the few remaining trees of this variety. I smile half-heartedly. There are only about 5 of these trees left. As the water flows down La Loma, past the estanque is a kind of holding container, long since abandoned from a time when the water was more plentiful. My grandfather could water the orchard and then also save some extra there to water intermittently. The water makes its way down to where the land starts to flatten and the fields begin. I wait nearby, shovel in hand, and start to notice that the water does not continue to move as quickly as it had at the start. The water seems to be moving quite slow, I remark to my father. The earth is dry, my father says. It's always like that, the first watering. The earth needs to absorb the water before it can move down the acequia. My senses start to come more alive. Pon atención, I think to myself. I fall into a kind of trance, my awareness flattening across the contours of the landscape. What can this mean? What am I here to learn? The earth must absorb the water before it can move forward. It's like practice, I think. Show up, lean in, pon atención. It has to saturate to a certain depth before it can advance. Can you get that? It has to penetrate a certain depth before it can advance. My awareness expands even further. I stand vigil over the advancing water. As I follow the water's movement across the orchard, I am aware that at times it is necessary to move or clear various obstacles, weeds, leaves, and fallen branches to facilitate the flow and direction of the water. Still, at other times, the obstacles are helpful. The obstacles are helpful, even necessary to help the water slow down, go deeper, and not allow the soil to erode. At other times still, it is necessary to manipulate or work with the obstructions in order to form a new path, to send the water to other trees. When the obstructions are removed, there is a quickening. The water's mounting energy thrusts a new path forward. The water's energy thrusts a new path forward. We will work from this side, my father says. There's an order to this. The land tilts from this end. Gravity will move the water down and across. I cannot perceive the tilt with my eyes, but as the shimmering water expands down and across the orchard, it was just as my father had said. Hey, Pa. It's a funny joke. My father and I call him Pa sometimes. It's a gun smoke thing. Pa, how long have you been watering in this orchard? Since I was a boy. About 62 years now. Your grandpa planted these trees before I was born. From the moment I was able, I have been helping him. I think of my grandfather. I can hear him sloshing through the orchard, regando la arbolera como lo hizo toda la vida. watering the orchard as he had done the whole of his life. I recall hearing from a friend that this year, Santa Fe celebrates its 413th cleaning of the acequia. Incredible. 413 years. The Puebloans and their ancestors have done it for thousands of years. I remember so many early mornings with my grandparents as we worked to harvest the apples, peaches, capulin, pears, and wild plums. I can still smell the apples in grandmother's dispensa and truchas over the fall and winter months, a ready supply for my grandmother's very loved pastelitos de manzana. Planting life indeed. Yeah. Always so happy, so delighted to share food with her family. And anyone, really, who came at her door, she served the best that she had. Transfixed and yet utterly open, I look up to the tops of some ancient cottonwoods that are hanging over the trees in the orchard. There, two majestic ravens had perched themselves. Don't frighten them, my father warns. They eat gophers, whose tunnels send the water to places you don't want it to go. Seemingly bottomless sinkholes that suck up the water like light being sucked up by a black hole. Only the heel of your boot, the shovel, the odd clump of earth can help momentarily divert water to arteries which do not leak. The leaks continue, but it's good enough. It's good enough. You do what you can. Water, like all life, tells you about itself. All knowing is like this. Pon atención. Give it your wholehearted awareness. Why could it or should it be otherwise? As we make our way to the oldest trees at the bottom of the orchard, some more dead than alive, others still holding to the last spring blossoms. Why are we watering these? I ask my father. You would be surprised, he says. There is still life in them. We have to water the ground regardless, so that when we plant new trees, the earth is ready to support them. So that the earth will be ready to support them. Of course, I recall the studies that confirm plants and trees talk and support each other. Even long after the tree doesn't look like a tree, it might be a stump. It is alive, being supported and communicated to by the other trees. Life gives life to life. I think about the pleasure I always got from asking my grandmother to tell me about los tiempos de antes, the old days. Always she began with, ¿Cómo se ayudaban? How people helped one another, para todo, para la cosecha, la siembra, para enjarrar las casas. And I especially love the story she tells about the very famous hueso guisandero, the sort of flavoring bone that is passed from people with more means to people who have less. A flavoring bone to give flavor to the beans, passed warm hand to warm hand, house to house. To plant life is to show up for life, to lean into it. Warm hand to warm hand, wholehearted awareness. in gratitude, the fruit of our being, the love of our labors can be offered up for all beings again and again. As this first riega, or watering of the orchard, comes to a close, as I'm getting in my car, I can't help but think of the Mahasakaka Sutra. You may know that this is the sutra where the Buddha recounts to Sakaka that after 6 years of austere practice, he asked himself, could there be another path to enlightenment? It is said that as he sat with this question more deeply, he arrives at a memory of a spring day when he was about the age of 6. He recalls his father taking him to the spring plowing festival, a time when the rich and the poor came together to plow the earth, a ritual marking the beginning of the spring planting season. Siddhartha spontaneously poises himself in a posture of meditation, and as he sits under a sweet-smelling apple tree, observes the scene unfolding before him. He is open, alert, and gives unfettered attention that sometimes children give to things. In that moment, not wanting, not fearing anything, he is aware of the earth, opening in wave-like furrows. He notices the heat shimmering up off the freshly opened soil. He sees the shining on the sweating faces and the straining bodies of the men and oxen. He notices the flash and sparkling sunlight coming off the bronze harnesses, the dark horns of the oxen. He feels the plodding rhythm of the oxen's hooves. The ringing sound of cowbells. He also clearly hears beautiful sound of bird song as they dive. The shrill of birds as they devour insects, grubs, and worms. And the sight of broken mouse bodies as they lay upon the soil. All this laboring, devouring, struggling, suffering, and dying, endlessly going on along the gaiety, joy, and beauty of that spring festival day. All this enters into Siddhartha's mind and heart, and open-heartedly, taking all the experience and scene unfolding in front of him, in his mind, he finds no inner conflict, no tension, nothing to add, nothing to take away. He experiences a bright, sweet pleasure that is not born out of desire or clinging of anything. It is said that this memory leads Siddhartha to be filled with an energy and assuredness that this is the footstep on the path of liberation. Siddhartha, deepened by this resolve, sits quietly until he can reach full freedom. Dear friends, you cannot be alien to this earth, no matter where you come from or how you call yourself. I invite you to consider the very ground of our practice. See how you might show up and take your place on the earth. Ponder, as Roshi likes to say, what watershed do you come from? What nourishes and gives you life? In the stillness of your mind, see if you can summon the heart, the promise of the seeds, the ones that may be in your hands as we plant the Three Sisters Garden, or the ones inside you. All have been passed on to us, warm hand to warm hand. And when you go to harvest, all that surely will grow, give it away. Just give it away. Hi, Skyla.